Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse, and thank you for joining us for a Speedy Beginner's Guide to Mambo Merge. And this month, in office hours, Cynthia's going to be walking us through some of the basic functionalities, simple troubleshooting, as well as some of the new features that have just been released. Today is Thursday, May 11th, and we thank you for joining. And thank you, Cynthia, for doing this. Take it away.
Thank you, Jesse. Today we're going to be looking at Mambo Merge, the flow configuration option. Here's my screen. So with Mambo Merge, you can generate a document using a template. Usually it's a single option, but we're going to be looking at flow, which is going to give us the opportunity to choose which records we're going to merge at the time of the merge. So what I've taken you to is a workshop in this org. The workshop is attached with an instructor-related object, an attendee-related object. You can see I already have Mambo Merge on the page. This is just a single record that's happening here. And it's going to be, as it says on the button, attendee contact list. Let's look real quick about how we usually get this onto the page, because flow is going to be a little bit different than what we do for this. So in the contact list that I've made, I have this component here. Normally, we would scroll down to the bottom, find Mambo Merge, drag it onto the page, but it's already here. Then you can see in the template ID, once we click Mambo Merge, this side fills out. We have contact list, and that's the name of the configuration that I have. Usually, you would take a template, put it into your org, and then get the file ID and put it into our template ID, and that'll let Mambo Merge know that template is always attached to it. With our Pro Edition and our Standard Edition, you can make configurations that allow you to add more details to your component. For instance, instead of just saying merge, I have this one saying attendees contact list. I also get to decide what my generated document is named as, and then we can add in other features like our post-merge actions. So contact list is what I have this one named, and that's why we have attendees contact list as our button. We can also change the display type of that. But let's go back. And we're going to go ahead and do our simple merge here of this single record. So I'm going to get my attendees list. You can see it downloaded instantly. I do have that option. I can change it to, say, if it attaches to a record, downloads immediately, or save to a library. So here's our generated document. I have the name of my workshop, Rising the Best Loaf of Your Life. And then over here, we have our attendees. And here they are, populated with their email and their phone number. Now, there's a lot of blank spaces. Normally, when we're doing a merge, we usually use our for loop for getting all the related objects. But if you see, here's the template that I'm using. I've gone in and I put exactly 25 rows with possibly 25 attendees. I'm doing this because in my workshop, I'm going to assume that 25 is the max that I want, but I also want to have those blank spaces, so maybe I can add in that detail later on the time of my workshop. So you can customize the templates to do exactly what you need. For loop would have been great. I wouldn't have ended up with all of these blank spots, but because I wanted those blank spots still there, I chose this format to get my related list. You see name, attendees email, attendees phone number, and it populated the way I needed it. Perfect. So this is all great and dandy, but what I want is I want to be able to do this for several workshops at once, and I want to be able to choose. We could do a batch or bulk merge using records where or reports, but those are going to always look for a set parameter I've done for those options. I want to be able to go to my workshops, view all of them, and select which one I need. So to do that, I'm going to make the configuration. So we'll go back in, go to this setup here for Mambo Merge, the component itself, and you can see all of my configurations here. The configuration that I used was contact list, if you remember, we looked at it. And it says in my description, workshop attendees list with contact info. That's exactly what I want. Now I can go and make a new configuration for my flow, but because this one's working, it has all my relationship, it has the perfect template, I'm going to go over to this option here, and select clone. And this is going to make a copy of this configuration for me. There's the copy, contact list copy. So we'll look at what that configuration was doing, and then we're going to change it for flow. So I've selected on my copy. Here we have workshop prime object, and then record selection is single record. We want from flow, and you see it says set up a flow to choose the record from the list view. So I'll change that and go to the next page. All my related lists are here. Those are the relationships I had previously and that were working for me. So I'm going to go ahead and skip over. And then we can check and see that this is still functioning the way I want it, which is I want to get attendees. And you see there's some populating there. And I can open this and look, all right, these are the fields I need: name, email, and phone number if it's attached into the attendees profile. So then we'll go to next. Here's where there's a difference. So now that I'm doing a batch or bulk, I have the option to choose one document per record or a single document for all the records. Now this is going to be a contact list that I print out for all my workshops for that day. So I'm going to go ahead and select single document for all records. So I'll have those lists that I've generated on the one, but they're all going to be in one document. It'll make it easier for me to print it later. Now, when we were doing a single, I could put the name, attendee, contact list. But if you mouse over here, it'll tell you those merge fields don't work. The only ones that work when you're doing a single document for several records is going to be now, today, and this year. Now we'll put the time, today, the date for today, and this year, obviously, the year. So I'm going to go ahead and put today. And we'll change this just to say attendee contact list. And I will add my merge field at the end. Now, when my document is generated, it'll say attendees contact list today. And so I'll know which one I want to print for that day. Not the one from 2 weeks ago, but the one from today. Maybe I'm going to print another one. It's going to look the same, but I'll be able to tell the difference now because I've put a date for it. Never getting confused. I've selected my destination for download immediately. We can save it to a library if we wanted to because we can't attach it to the record. It's one document for all. But if I was going to do one document per record, I could choose to save it to the record. So going to the next page, we can add post-merge actions. I'm not going to add any for now because I'm just going to be printing this document directly. But if you remember, you can always update the record, save a task, or send an email if needed. And then final page is going to be changing our configuration ID. I'm going to change the name to Workshop Flow. That's going to make it easier for me to use it. We can also change our display options. We have buttons, straightforward. We have our drop down, which we would select the name that we need and then hit merge. We have radio, select the radio button, then merge. And then one of our newer ones that recently came about is the thumbnail. So this is great if you want to get a little preview just to remember what exactly attendees contact list looks like. It shows you the template itself. And then we can select that, then hit merge. But for my case, I'm going to go ahead and select buttons. It's going to be much more easier for my flow. We can also, if we wanted to, show configuration ID. Gives you an extra little name right here to know this is the configuration ID that's being used for this component. I'm going to go ahead and not use that and leave it as B. So we're going to hit save. So now our workshop flow is down here. Says what it is. Perfect. Didn't have to make a whole new one and learn all the relationships that were needed. So what are we going to do next? How do we get Mambo Merge onto this list view option? Well, first we have to go to the gear icon. We're going to go to Setup. And the fastest way to getting to flows is type in flows. There we are, flows under process automation. Select it. Now I already have a basic Mambo Merge flow, and that's the one that we're going to be creating today. But we're going to go ahead and look at the one I have pre-made first, just to give you an idea, overview of what it will look like. It's pretty simple. There's only 3 things actually on the flow builder screen right here. And then if we open this up, we can see our resources. Looks like there's a lot of resources, but really we're going to be making only 4 resources, and then we're going to be dropping the 3 things here on the map. So we'll be making our IDs, which is our collection of all our variables, a comma, record ID, and template ID. We're going to go back, start a whole new one so that I can slowly walk it through how all of these work. So we'll go back. And we're back on our flow page. Up on the top, we can hit New Flow. And we're on the Flow Builder. So now there's a lot of options here. We didn't see this when we looked at the pre-made one. So the pre-made one is made with a screen flow. Mambo Merge is used by the user. So it interacts through the org, through the user's access point. And so screen flow is what we want because it's going to rely on if a user is clicking. So we're here, you select the screen flow. We have nothing but our start and end, and we have no resources. So let's start with our resources. So I'm going to go to variable, new resource, variable, and I'm going to name this one IDs. And this variable is going to hold all of my IDs of my records that I've selected. So here I'm going to select text for my data type. I'm going to allow it to hold multiple values because this is going to hold all of them. And then I'm going to go and select available for input and output. And I'm going to hit done. So now I have my first one. My next one is going to be a variable. And we're going to name this one record ID. The I is capitalized. And I'm going to go ahead and select text. And that's all we're going to have on this one. So this one is going to stand for a single record ID in my collection of IDs. Another thing we need is a variable that is going to be called comma. Now, what are we doing with this variable called comma? Well, it's going to be exactly what it is, a comma. So I go ahead and put in comma. So data type text, default value is just a comma, and we're going to have that. So what is that one going to be used for? Well, in the IDs, we could put in all our record IDs, and it would just look like one big massive string to Mambo Merge. The comma is going to help us keep those separated so Mambo Merge knows these are all different records. Now, our last resource we need to make is going to be another variable. We're going to name it template ID. And that's going to be familiar to you because on our component, we put in the template ID, which can also be the file ID of our template, or it can be our configuration ID. So that's what this one's going to be. And we're going to go ahead and put available input, available output. And we will hit done. So we got all our resources we need. Now we can move to the screen over here. We're going to go ahead and select our plus element. And our first one we want to grab is going to be a loop because we're going to be going through all of those records that I'm selecting on my list view. So here I'm going to just title this Collecting Records. It's best to keep things simple so that you know what they are later on when you're referencing back to them. So select collection variable. This one's pretty straightforward. It's going to be our IDs. You can remember that because in the side over here, you can see collection variables and IDs is under there. So that's the one that we want. We're going to go ahead and leave this as first item to last item. And we're going to hit done for that. Now we have this cool little funky loop happening. What we need to do is assign those records to our loop so that we can pass it to our Mambo Merge. So next thing is going to be assignment. I'm going to go ahead and label this. We'll just go ahead and do what it's in my other one, which is concatenate. And that just means that we're combining, compounding, joining all the records into one. So then what do we do next is going to set this variable to record ID. And then we're going to add this record ID to our collection, which is current item from loop collecting records. So this is saying that we're grabbing the record ID, adding it to the current item from our IDs that we're collecting from in that loop. And then we're going to add one more thing. And that thing that we're adding is going to be that wonderful comma. So what we're doing in this assignment is saying the record ID is being added to our loop, and we're also adding a comma at the end so that we know each one is a different one. And from there, we're going to go ahead and hit done. So now our flow is growing. We're almost done. And you can see things are populating. It's almost looking similar to how we saw that other basic flow. So now we'll go to elements again. Got to scroll down to look at them all. And then here we're going to select screen. So this is going to be that flow screen. So when we hit our button, so we'll be on our list view, we'll select our records that we're using, and then we're going to hit our button that takes us to the flow. This is going to be the flow page. So that I know exactly what's happening, I'm going to put Mambo Merge Flow page. And we'll just click here so it autofills for me. And then we're going to go over to the component side here, scroll down to the bottom where it says Mambo Merge. Remember, we could always type it in, saves you time. We're going to go ahead and drag it to where there's a green spot. So it's kind of like our edit page option where we drag it onto the page. Doesn't quite look the same. And then we have more fields here that are populating. What we want to do here is name our component. I like to keep it simple and just put MM component. So MM Mambo Merge component. We don't need to worry about debug, merge data, or merge unload for right now. We're keeping this very simple. The only two fields that are important are going to be the record ID and the template ID. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to select record ID. Then I'm going to go and select template ID for template ID. It's very simple. This is why we named them that, so that you could easily associate which is going to where. Now, why do we have these variables? Why is template ID this variable? Why can't I just put the configuration or the file ID of my template? You can do that, but then this flow is going to be only attached to that template ID or configuration. By setting up this variable, I now am able to use this for other objects, other templates, and other configurations. So that's why I have it set up this way. We're going to go ahead and hit done. Our configuration is all set, looking pretty much the same. We'll go ahead and hit save, and we'll name it. I'm going to say this is my workshop flow. Go ahead and click here. It's going to fill that in again. Hit save. And we have it saying version 1 inactive. What does that mean? Well, that means that I need to activate it. If I don't activate it and I do all the next steps, it's not going to work. So remember always to activate. If you update your flow, you're going to save again, and you're going to have to remember to activate. So always remember to activate. So we'll go ahead and go back. And now we're on our flow page with all our flows here. There's my basic one, but we're going to go ahead and find my workshop flow down here at the bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and select View Details and Versions. Now, why did I go to this page? Well, because I need this URL for my next setup. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this for now. I'll keep this page open so that I don't lose it. And with that, we're going to go back to our workshop. Here we are on our workshop viewing. If I was also on the record itself, that's fine. But we're going to go back up to this gear here. And then we're going to select Edit Object. And we're going to go from here in the Object Manager set to Workshop. We're going to go to Buttons, Links, and Actions. And normally we would put new button or link, but I already have a button made for this flow. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And so we're editing this. This is what it would look like if we did hit it for a new one, but it would be empty. So I labeled attendees list, and that'll be the name of the button when it's on the list view page. I've also selected that it is going to display type as a list button. And then contact source is going to be URL. And then if we look here, we do have something happening. So what's happening here is this is the name of my basic flow that I have, but I'm going to replace that with the one we just created. So I'll paste that in. You can see flow, workshop, flow. Now what's this part right here? Well, this is telling when I click that button, which template ID variable to pass along with my records. So the question mark template ID with the I capitalized equals workshop flow, and that's the flow configuration that we created earlier. So we'll go ahead and save that. And this should be done, right? It should be appearing. Well, if we go and refresh, it's not going to be there. There's one more step that we need to do. We'll go back to our workshop object manager here. On the right side or on the left side, there's going to be list view button layout. We want to click that, and we'll go over to here, drop down, edit. Scrolling down to custom buttons, you'll see attendees list. That's the button we just created. So we'll move it over to add. I'll hit save. Now, if I go back to my workshops and I refresh my page, we should have that button. There it is, attendees list. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of these guys, hit my attendees list. Now, the first time you run your flow, it does take a while. Flows take some time to wake themselves up, but once it does, Mambo Merge is going to be running very quickly. Now, with that flow, we can set it to have anything else to a different object. So I could have it for my attendees directly, my instructors, my contacts. I can also change the templates that are generating. But here we are on our workshop flow. I'm going to go ahead and select attendees contact list. There's going to be a little green button there. And then boom, already downloading for me. So here we are. Pull that down for you guys to see. How to train Komodo dragons. Here are all my attendees, my other class with their attendees, and it just keeps going. Everybody I selected is filling out. You can see if there is no data in those fields, Mambo Merge doesn't leave the merge field. It leaves it blank. So even though I have attendees in this class, nobody filled out their email or phone. So I don't have to worry about having to erase my merge fields or anything like that. Mambo Merge knows you don't want that after the end. But if there is data, it will fill it in for me. So it's very simple to do this. We can add it to another one if we wanted to. I have another template if we want to look at that. But for now, I'm going to pass it back to Jesse for any questions that people have for what we've done so far.
Thank you, Cynthia. And yes, as you mentioned, we are going to open up the floor here for questions. So if anybody has questions, feel free to raise your hand or just jump in. Okay. All right. We have one question here. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, and thanks, Cynthia. That was super helpful to see like a flow get built in real time like that. As somebody who likes the functionality but is a little bit intimidated by flow historically, can I use flow like that to batch produce documents and then individually send them to my recipients? Like, let's say I had, a checklist of who attended class and I wanted to send them like a certificate of completion or something. Could I do that with Mambo Merge and Flow?
You can. So the flow that we did was a bulk. I do have a flow already set to my attendees to send them their welcome letter. So if I go over here, I can select that. And this one is set to do it for a batch. So each record, so each individual attendee will get a document created for them, and then we can send that to them. Let's make sure I have that set so that it will send an email. So we'll go to our setup, and this flow for my welcome email is going to be welcome email flow. It's a similar setup of just setting flow, any relationships I need, checking my merge data, my templates are set. One thing to know though, if you're going to send an email, it has to be saved to Salesforce. I could save it in a library, or I could attach it to each record. We'll go ahead and change it to attach to each record. And then here in the post-merge action, I add an action. I select send email. To addressee field is going to be an email field. So I know the email is email, so I don't have to worry. But if I named it something else, I would want to make sure that that data is an email in case I named it something that doesn't match. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit new customer and set that as my email template. These are the email templates that are used through Salesforce. My document is going to be sent as an attachment with that email. And then here, if I wanted to use a org-wide email, I would set it. Otherwise, it's going to use the user, myself, email to send that email. I'll hit next, save, and then we'll go back to our attendees. We'll select all of them, and we'll do a welcome letter email. It populates. I hit the button. I'll get my green toaster telling me it's complete. You could also see that there's a progression bar now on the bottom of Mambo Merge. That's a new feature that lets you know that even though we got this dot happening telling us Mambo's still doing stuff, we now know how far along we are and how close we are to the end. There we are, our green toast. And we'll actually go back to our attendees and we'll pull up Graham Gump. And he is going to have his welcome letter here. And usually this sent through. So normally when your email is sent, you will get the update that their details are in there. Let's make sure. No, he doesn't have an email, so he didn't get an email sent out. That's why it didn't go through. If we find somebody with an email, we'll see. Here we are. So they have their email set. My email was sent out. And I have like a little display of the email that was sent. And it also has the little clip to let me know my attachment was also. And then we can also check here. There's our attachment. So we could do that with Flow. It was pretty much the same layout. Didn't have to change the flow itself, just my configuration.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Another question that came in through our App Exchange listing here is, I guess there's been some mention about security and permissions, and I believe some questions have been addressed that, Mambo Merge adheres to security. Are there any permissions required to make configurations within that configuration wizard? From a user's perspective, are they required to have a particular set of permissions to be able to create, delete, edit, etc.?
Yeah, so with our configurations, you see that we can add in our post-merge actions. Those can update the record. It can save a task. It can also send an email out. Those are things that we don't want to just allow to be changed so easily. So with Mambo Merge setup page, everybody will be able to look at it, but they won't be able to make a new configuration, edit, or save, delete, as you said. To do that, we want to make sure that there are some system user permission sets that are set up. Let me go to my setup real quick, and we'll see those in real time, what they are. Go to user, and we'll pull myself up. Now I am a system admin in this org, but we can still see what those permissions are looking like. So I'm going to go to profile. We don't recommend that you change your profiles to include these permission sets. We recommend that maybe you build a permission set to add onto a profile, because not everybody that has a certain profile might need this. So we'll scroll down, and we're looking for system admin. or administrative permissions. This is what we need. So we want API enabled. We want author Apex. And then we also want to be able to modify all our data. It's a lot of permission to be given to somebody, so that's why we don't recommend that you add it to a profile, add it to a permission set. The reason that the security is so high is because once you build your configuration, you're probably not going to change it anytime soon. Once you've got it perfectly as it needs to be set up, what really is going to be changed more often than not is going to be the actual template. And for that, you can just go to your files. You'll go to your Mambo Merge library, and you'll just go ahead and select this drop down and hit upload new version. And that way you don't have to change the configuration, the file that's attached to it. It's always just the file being updated itself. But yeah, those are the only permissions that really need to be added in if somebody has to be the one that's going to update the configurations.
Awesome. And thank you for that. Yeah, it seems like, admins have to kind of look through it and assess their user to identify what permissions and who they're going to grant them to. So I guess, as you mentioned, just take precaution, I guess, is what you're letting us know.
Yeah. It's always based on what's going to work with your company. Really, when using Mambo Merge, it's the user that's hitting the button. They just need to have access to your files and then to the records themselves. They won't need to know about the configurations too much because once you have it developed, the user's not going to be changing it too much.
Awesome. Just one last question from my end here. I did notice that you were going through that flow process. And I did also notice that there's other type of flows available. Primarily, I noticed that we're using screen flows for these kind of how to have Mambo Merge engage with the flow itself. Is there any intent to integrate some of the other flow types to work with Mambo Merge?
So at the moment, Mambo Merge is only able to function with the screen flow. And as I mentioned, it's because it uses the user's access to run Mambo Merge. That's why each user that's going to use Mambo Merge, and when I say use, they're going to be the one that generates the document. It uses their access point. So, excuse me. So the screen flow is going to be that one. It's going to work the way that we normally look at Salesforce. We don't have anything right now coming out soon. We do hope at one point to be able to launch a flow after we've completed our Mambo Merge. So that'll be another post-merge action that is on our roadmap. And then as we continue with flows, we will probably look further into adding Mambo Merge to other ones. But right now, the only one that's on our roadmap is going to be triggering it as a post-merge action.
Okay. Good to know. Any more questions from the audience, from the attendees here? Okay, so we do thank you for joining. And if you think of questions 10 minutes after this call, as it happens, feel free to send them our way. Our next office hours webinar is scheduled for Thursday, June 8th. So follow us on one of the social media channels or email us to at support@mambomerge.com to add you to the list. We thank you, Cynthia, for running us through this and answering questions. We thank you, folks, for asking questions, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.